This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth with breaking news. The ransomware hackers strike again. As we see here from Forbes, ransomware hackers demand $70 million in Bitcoin, claim massive US attack as Biden investigates possible Russian involvement. A group of Russian-speaking hackers have claimed responsibility for a massive ransomware attack over the holiday weekend that hit 200 US firms and hundreds more worldwide, with the group demanding $70 million in Bitcoin to restore the company's data in the latest debilitating cyber attack to hit the US this year. And if you guys have been watching this channel, you'll know I recently put this out. The next false flag will be a cyber attack on global supply chains. Cyber Polygon exposed. Cyber Polygon, as you can see here, of course, is run by the World Economic Forum. This is a simulation about a cyber attack. And as you can see here, guys, this starts in just 4 days from now. Just 4 days from now. Very, very interesting timing, to say the least. And joining us on the line right now to break this down for us and so much more is our friend Derrick Broze of The Conscious Resistance. TheConsciousResistance.com is the website. Derrick, thanks so much for joining us here today. I want to get your views on Cyber Polygon. I mean, you recently put out this fantastic article. Why are, quote, conspiracy theorists, end quote, worried about an impending power grid failure? Links to that article will be located in the description below. But before we get into that, maybe we could start off today with this latest news of this recent hack over the weekend. What's your initial reaction when you heard that this Russian hacking group is at it again, looking for 70 million in Bitcoin? What's your initial reaction to the news today?
Well, I thought it was interesting that when you were reading that, I think it was a Forbes article, they said it's a Russian-speaking hackers, right? So not even, they just speak Russian, not even sure if they're actually Russian. The Russian-speaking is kind of the, I don't know, just, it's odd, but I think also it's nothing new. Obviously everybody on your channel is familiar with how much Russia hysteria there was over the last 4 years. And clearly there are some realistic, discerning, discouraging and troubling things coming out of Russia, for a long time. That's a fact, right? But we can also see at the same time that the push to demonize Russia or China, whichever it may be, is just another kind of easy boogeyman to use in the case of, like, before it was terrorism, communism, etc. Again, there are some realistic things to look about, but it's just a common, I don't know, it's just a common trope at this point that if something goes wrong, or they even claim something goes wrong, right? There's a hack. We don't know the truth about this hack. We don't know the details, but it's the Russians, right? And all the person, I think the sort of average normie person who watches the news without too much discernment just hears that and gets repeated further into the brain. Oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. The Russians, we've heard for 4 years how the Russians are trying to come after the elections. The Russians are trying to do this, this, and this. So of course the Russians would be hacking us. So yeah, I think it's more of that kind of planting that seed in people's minds, which is helpful when it comes to geopolitics.
Well, if it wasn't the Russians, obviously somebody is up to no good here. Let's take a look at who else might be responsible for this. So let's just explore that a little bit. Who would be interested in doing this? What is the who would be interested, do you think, in pulling off something like this if it wasn't these crazy Russian hackers?
I would say either the US or Israel, or both. I kind of point to that a little bit in my article based on some reporting that Whitney Webb has done in the last few months, but specifically, it ties into the cyber pandemic thing that there's a woman, let me see if I have her name, Yigal Una, the head of Israel's National Cyber Directorate. So, powerful position in the field of cybersecurity, warning of a cyber winter that was coming and faster than she suspected. She said this last year. So this proclamation was made in 2020 at the same time as Klaus Schwab and others were warning about a cyber pandemic or a cyber threat. But she's not just, some random Israeli employee. She works at the head of Israeli intelligence. She has connections to the infamous Unit 8200, and I'm sure you've covered that in the past. And for those who are unfamiliar, just another kind of shady elite hacking group within the Israeli intelligence, which is already pretty powerful on its own. And yeah, so I mean, I think that there are some realistic concerns to be had about whether the Israelis and or the US government are involved or behind some of these attacks. I do think that, and saying this we don't have all the information yet, right? But just as I try to illustrate in this article, we have a history of being skeptical towards these so-called authorities, right? So I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, maybe we're not being told the full picture. Maybe this really could be a false flag that serves somebody else's agenda.
Well, let's look at that actually a little bit. This potential for a false flag, and how a Cyber Polygon is potentially the preconditioning, if you will, for such a thing. So you put out that article 4 days ago. Now, in 4 days from now, this Cyber Polygon event is going to be taking place. Can you tell us a little bit about what should be expected from this event in 4 days from now? What is it?
Yeah, so Cyber Polygon is, an exercise, as you mentioned, of the World Economic Forum, the folks behind the Great Reset and many other plans pushing towards the world of 2030. Well, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. They have done this since 2019, so this will be the third time they're running Cyber Polygon. And I guess officially it's a tabletop exercise. It's very similar to Event 201 and some of the others that I know you've covered, where there's going to be a simulation of some type of attack. And in the information I found on the Cyber Polygon website, they're talking about the interconnectivity of the digital world and what happens if there's there's an attack on some central power grid or something, and one domino begins to fall, and how does that affect all these different systems? And so they're going to have simulations of these hacks taking place in real time, where there probably will be rooms with military and other private organizations, because specifically the World Economic Forum is working with lots of banks. They're working with like MasterCard, they're working with IBM, tech companies, corporations, along with government. So I imagine you'll have security experts from those different organizations, and they'll get, okay, hey, we now have an attack on, whatever scenario they specifically go with. I guess we'll find out. And then they'll have to respond in real time. And they say they're going to be able to draw some like conclusions on how well prepared they are for it. That's like the kind of surface level of it, but they are specifically saying that it will have to do with supply chain disruption, and that's something that I know you, myself, Corbett, Christian at Ice Age Farmer, and many others have been warning about, because the signs have been kind of picking up in recent months, and especially in relation to COVID, the talk of like food shortages, and because of COVID, then all of these things just kind of building on top of each other, right? And then the hacks affecting the pipelines, the hacks affecting the meat supply, the hacks affecting this and that, and they're just steadily increasing, right? So coincidentally, Cyber Polygon is coming up around the same time, calling for how do we simulate a hack on the central grid. And they also mention a few different things in there. I'll just mention one or two of them. They talk about their agenda, and their agenda includes a discussion, just one example, on regulating the internet, like an international regulation for the internet that they say is becoming necessary. They also talk about one talk is called New World, New Currency, how to make the financial system resilient as digital currencies proliferate. So, it's clearly just fulfilling a lot of the agendas that we've been warning about for some time. And they're like talking about it like, hey, wow, what are we going to do with currency? And don't we need to regulate the internet now to keep people safe, and all these kinds of things.
Wow, they're basically saying exactly what they want to do moving forward. Now, if we have this supply chain attacks, we have the food shortages coming, we have all these sorts of things that are very potentially going to happen. Let's imagine for a second that they do go ahead with their global supply chain false flag scenario. Are there things that we can do right now to prepare for this? I mean, I know you speak a lot about how people can be ready and to work on themselves in order to be able to help others. But what do you think are some of the ways people can protect themselves from this, not only with their digital security, but also how they live their lives personally? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. I will say, to your first point, yeah, I do talk a lot about kind of, I guess, spiritual healing, spiritual awareness. I think it's something that I've seen you push over towards as well. And I think that's a big component. I'm going to talk, the rest of the things I'm going to suggest are in the physical realm, different things that you can do that are practical. But I would also say, and I'm sure you agree, Dan, that if you're not, right with your creator, I guess is one way to say it. If you're not feeling good about where you are in life and the potential that we are facing some pretty crazy things, then maybe start there and get yourself spiritually aligned, and centered and all that good stuff first, because that's a big important component of what we're facing for sure. And then when it comes to the physical realm, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one thing I've been doing is I've been trying to invest the bit of extra money I have into like solar equipment. Just, nothing, I don't have anything huge like on top of the roof of the house just yet or anything, but different, they either kind of small commercial things that can be handheld that can still charge devices or charge things, computers, and depending on how big of batteries you get, depending on your situation, whether you would need to be mobile or, kind of hunker down someplace. But things like that are important. Also, just, stocking up your camping supplies that you have that could be useful in just not camping situations, but maybe survival situations if it ever really came down to it. Because the truth is, the one thing that the World Economic Forum is right in pointing out is that our world is more interconnected than ever. And yeah, because of the way many of us, including some of us who are very aware of these things, live our lives, that, if one little domino falls, like the power, just the simple thing is that the power goes out, right? Well, then you don't have internet anymore. In a couple of days, if it lasts that long, the food in your fridge is going to go bad. Do you have any extra food? Can you count on the grocery stores to stay stocked up for long? What happens when that doesn't work out, or when they say, hey, because of this, now gas prices are skyrocketing because this other it could be a multitude of hacks all at once that they say we're just, on an onslaught, and everything starts breaking down, maybe days after days. Those are situations that I think you can really try to be prepared for. Like, none of us can maybe plan for every situation, but I've made the recent suggestion I think is really simple and easy, that like, I know that most of the grocery stores I've been to, at least in the US, and I'm sure this varies place to place, but generally you can go into a place and buy like a can of beans, a can of organic beans. You can buy like 10 of those for probably $10, or, in that range, $10, $12. And even if you can spare that much every time you make a trip to go to the grocery store a couple of times a week, and putting that away, I mean, that is a little bit more food security. And I think that's kind of what it really comes down to, is if you're food secure, if you have, a plan A, B, and C, as prepared as you want to be. If you have a little bit of food maybe growing, you've got a network, join the Freedom Cell Network, freedomcells.org. If you're connected with other activists locally, then you, I feel, are less inclined to be afraid, right? Because that's the other thing, is there's plenty of us who are watching this video, Dan, and people who read my article who are in a state of fear, in a state of panic, like, oh my God, Cyber Polygon's about to happen. Is this going to be it? I need to get prepared. It can be very easy to get sucked into that fear mindset. And again, if you're not centered, you're not going to help yourself, your family, or really anybody else. So the more prepared you are, whatever that means for you, then I feel like the less reason you have to be afraid. You can kind of feel like, well, okay, bring it, whatever they got. Like, I know I've got, we've got our plan in case this goes down. We're going to move to this thing. We're going to stay at the house. Or if this happens, we're going to decide to get on the road. Really strategize about that, which can make you feel a little crazy. But I mean, here we are. This is 2021, right? This is what we're facing. So I don't think any of that is unreasonable. And then the final point I'll make is that this idea of prepping, of being prepared, has been made fun of in the media for a long time now. And it's, I think, done on purpose, because they want you, again, to feel crazy if you're thinking about the future, a month into the future, 6 months, a year, whatever. And you're reading the news and seeing what's going on and saying, hey, maybe I should make sure my family can survive in any situation. That's like something people want to make fun of, right? But at the end of the day, our ancestors, not too far back, maybe just 2 generations, 3 generations ago, they survived because they had to plan for the winter. And many people still live their lives this way in different parts of the world. You have to plant with the seasons. You got to move the animals with the seasons. You got to make sure the animals can survive the winter when all the grass is, snowed on and killed, or whatever it may be. The point is that our entire species has gotten as far as it has by preparing, by thinking ahead, and by taking precautionary steps. So that's all this is. We shouldn't allow these people to kind of condition us to think that that's stupid or silly or crazy to want to plan ahead and think about what's coming.
Yeah, fantastic words of advice. I mean, you really do need to have a plan moving forward. And if you're currently are not exactly sure how you're going to weather the storm, well, it's time to start making the right moves to do so. Learn to grow your own food, start your garden. Don't be relying on the government, the banks, or the grocery stores whatsoever, but also community is important too. And if you are interested in finding these freedom cells, you are interested in joining together with like-minded people on some land. These are the kind of things we need to look at moving forward, because I don't think this is a matter of if, but it's kind of a matter of when. So as you said, Derrick, spiritual well-being comes first, and then after that, we gotta really prepare. Like you said, they've been making fun of those people. Well, now it's time to become one of those people. So if people want to learn about how they can join one of these freedom cells, or find your articles, where's the best place for people to go right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dan. Thanks for having me on. So as far as Freedom Cells, if you guys are new to that, just check out Freedom Cells, that's CELLS.org. And there's a kind of introductory video on the homepage, and you can just jump in there and basically create a profile, search the maps, and find other groups in your area, or create one in your area. You could find people near you. We've had a lot of success over the last year because people are really at the point where they're ready to get prepared and get organized. So check out freedomcells.org. And then you mentioned my main website, theconsciousresistance.com. Also, the article is written for Ryan's website, The Last American Vagabond. My articles come out there. And then I'll just briefly mention my other project that if anybody wants to check out, I would appreciate it. It's called The Pyramid of Power. It's a documentary series that I'm working on that I started releasing in May, completely for free. It's coming out in seasons, 4 at a time. So I've released the first season. You can find that at thepyramidofpower.net. And we're going to be releasing season 2 in September, basically every 3 to 4 months. And it's going to be 16 parts, kind of going through all the different components of what I'm calling the Pyramid of Power. A lot of the work that you and I and others have covered, but trying to take the best bits of all those things and condense them down to 20, 25 minutes, make it kind of bingeable for the Netflix generation, and hopefully get more minds thinking about these things. But yeah, you guys can find that at thepyramidofpower.net. Thank you, brother.
Fantastic. Yeah, man, love it. That sounds great. I'm going to have links to all of this in the description below, guys. Be sure you check it out. Once again, man, Derrick, thanks so much for joining us today. You keep up the great work.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.